Hold still for a second. Not your body, your mind. Yeah, right there. That's where the noise starts, isn't it? Because right now, somewhere out there, they're staring at the numbers, the timelines, the cause and effect charts, the neat little equations they worship like scripture. And it's falling apart in their hands. You can hear it in the silence, the pauses that last a beat too long, the way their confidence keeps glitching mid-sentence. They're losing it, trying to decode you. Because the math isn't mathing anymore. You were supposed to be predictable. That was the deal. You were supposed to follow the formula. Pain equals collapse. Pressure equals surrender. Chaos equals mistakes. That's how it's always worked for them. That's how they sleep at night. But then you happened. And now every variable they trusted is turning on them like a traitor. They try to chart you, and the line keeps breaking. They try to model you, and the data contradicts itself. They try to explain you, and their own explanations start sounding insane. Because one moment you look like discipline, restraint, precision, and the next moment you look like pure, unhinged instinct, saint and psychopath in the same breath, angel and demon shaking hands inside the same skull. And that duality, that's what's short-circuiting their brains. See, they can handle monsters. Monsters make sense. Monsters are loud, obvious, destructive. They can handle heroes too. Heroes are clean, moral, easy to frame. But you don't sit still in any category long enough to be labeled. You heal in the dark and smile in the light. You absorb damage that should have erased you and somehow convert it into clarity. That's not supposed to happen. That breaks their rules. They keep asking the same question over and over, pretending it's analytical when it's really fear. How did this not break you? And every time they think they're close to the answer, you do something that ruins the theory. You stay calm where panic is expected. You stay quiet where ego should explode. Or worse, you move decisively when hesitation was statistically guaranteed. That's when you feel it, that sharp spike in their energy, that moment where confusion turns into obsession. Because unpredictability like yours isn't chaos. It's controlled asymmetry. It's intelligence that learned how to weaponize pain. You didn't just survive the pressure. You studied it. You let it carve you down to the bone. Then rebuilt yourself in a shape that doesn't fit their instruments anymore. That's why their measurements keep coming back wrong. They're using old tools on a new species. They don't know whether to fear you or admire you. And that tension is driving them insane. 1 second they tell themselves you're just lucky. The next second they're watching you repeat the outcome with different circumstances and realizing luck doesn't scale like that. 1 second they convince themselves you're reckless. The next second they see the precision underneath your madness and feel their stomach drop. Because reckless people burn out. You don't. You adapt. You've become a walking paradox. Calm but dangerous. Quiet but disruptive. Detached but deeply intentional. And paradoxes are poison to rigid minds. They need straight lines. You move in spirals. They need rules. You operate on instincts sharpened by suffering. They need permission. You learned how to act without certainty. And that terrifies them more than violence ever could. They replay your moves in their head late at night, trying to reverse engineer the moment you shifted, trying to find the exact trauma, the exact break, the exact decision where you became this. But what they don't understand is that it wasn't one moment. It was 1,000 small deaths. 1,000 humiliations, betrayals, losses, silences, each one burning something useless out of you and leaving something sharper behind. You didn't evolve despite the pain. You evolved through it, and that's the part that makes the math collapse completely. Pain is supposed to reduce people. It reduced your illusions. Pain is supposed to weaken people. It clarified your priorities. Pain is supposed to make people smaller. It made you precise. So now they're stuck. They can't dismiss you because the results are real. They can't copy you because they don't have your scars. They can't predict you because you don't even think the way they think thinking works. And deep down, in that place they never admit exists, they're starting to realize something even more disturbing. You didn't beat the system by breaking it. You beat it by outgrowing it. That's why the room feels different when you enter now. That's why conversations shift. That's why people hesitate before speaking around you. They sense it. The anomaly, the intelligence that doesn't announce itself. The power that doesn't rush. The presence that doesn't need validation. You're not loud, but you're felt. And that kind of influence doesn't come from dominance. It comes from depth. You're living proof that the equation they taught everyone is incomplete. That discipline plus suffering plus self-awareness can create something they don't have language for yet. You're what happens when someone survives the fire without letting it turn them into ash or armor, but into signal. And now they're staring at the evidence, sweating over the charts, whispering to themselves that something's wrong with the data. Not realizing the truth is much worse for them. There's nothing wrong with the data. There's something different about you. They keep going back over it, again and again, like if they stare long enough, the universe will apologize and correct itself. They rewind conversations. They screenshot moments. They analyze pauses, tone shifts, timing. They ask themselves what you were really thinking when you said that thing so calmly, when the room expected panic. And every replay makes it worse because the more they look, the less it lines up. You weren't reacting. You were choosing. That's the detail they can't swallow. Most people are predictable because they're reactive. Push here, they flinch. Take this away, they chase. Threaten that, they fold. That's the math they've memorized. That's the grid they live on. But you stepped off the grid somewhere along the way, quietly. No announcement, no rebellion arc. Just a slow, internal recalibration where you stopped needing the outcome to feel safe. And that's when you became dangerous. Because when someone no longer needs certainty, leverage stops working. When someone no longer needs approval, manipulation loses its teeth. When someone no longer needs to be understood, explanation becomes optional. You move from impulse to intention, from reaction to direction. And now they're watching you operate like a closed system, self-fueled, self-correcting, internally anchored. And it's breaking their sense of control. They don't know whether you're 5 steps ahead or 5 steps detached. They can't tell if you're planning something, or if you've already let go of the game entirely. And that ambiguity, that silence between possibilities, that's where their anxiety lives now. Because ambiguity is where power hides. You learned something in the dark that most people never learn in the light. Clarity doesn't come from answers. It comes from surviving unanswered questions. While they were demanding explanations from life, you were learning how to function without them. While they were negotiating with fear, you were letting it pass through you, studying its shape, its patterns, its tells. That's why your eyes don't move the same way anymore. That's why your voice doesn't rush. That's why your presence feels heavier. You're not carrying rage. You're carrying resolve. And resolve doesn't announce itself. It settles in. It waits. It observes. It decides. They mistake your stillness for uncertainty, not realizing stillness is what comes after certainty. After you've already accepted every outcome. After you've already died a few internal deaths and realized none of them could touch the core of you. This is where the angel-demon paradox sharpens. You're capable of compassion that disarms people and restraint that terrifies them. You understand suffering deeply enough to empathize and deeply enough to never be ruled by it again. You can choose softness without weakness. You can choose hardness without cruelty. And that flexibility, that range, that's what makes you unreadable. They want you to be one thing: broken, arrogant, traumatized, dangerous, enlightened, anything that fits a label. But you slide between identities depending on the moment, not because you're fake, but because you're integrated. You've already met your shadow. You've already negotiated with it. You don't need to act it out unconsciously anymore. And that's why they can't provoke you the way they used to. They throw bait and you don't bite. They escalate and you don't flinch. They withdraw and you don't chase. Every expected response collapses. Every script fails. And slowly, quietly, they start realizing the truth they don't want to say out loud. You're no longer playing defense. You're not even playing offense. You're playing selection, choosing when, where, and if you engage at all. That kind of autonomy terrifies systems built on reaction. You didn't become this by accident. This is what happens when pain stops being an identity and becomes an education. When betrayal stops being a wound and becomes information. When loss stops being tragedy and becomes filtration. The weak attachments burned off. The false narratives collapsed. The unnecessary desires dissolved. What remained was something lean, adaptive, hard to impress, impossible to rush. That's why the math isn't mathing. They're still calculating effort. You're operating on alignment. They're measuring force. You're measuring timing. They're counting resources. You're counting clarity. And clarity compounds faster than anything they understand. So now, when they look at you, there's this subtle creeping dread underneath their curiosity. Not because you're threatening, but because you're uncontainable. You don't need their validation. You don't fear their rejection. You don't collapse under their pressure. You don't inflate under their praise. You remain centered. And a centered individual inside a chaotic system is a wild variable. They feel it when you speak less but land harder. They feel it when you listen more than you explain. They feel it when you walk away without dramatics. That's when it hits them. Whatever you went through didn't make you smaller. It made you precise. And precision doesn't waste energy. It doesn't rush. It doesn't beg. It doesn't explain itself to those who haven't paid the price to understand. You're not broken. You're not lucky. You're not insane. You're calibrated. And somewhere deep in their gut, beneath all the spreadsheets and theories and whispered group chats, they know it. They can sense that you're no longer operating from fear of loss, because you already survived losing what you thought defined you. And when someone has nothing left to prove and nothing left to protect, the rules stop applying. That's the real reason they're losing it. Not because they can't decode you, but because, slowly, painfully, They're starting to realize you decoded yourself, and once you decode yourself, the world stops sounding convincing. You start hearing the cracks in everything they say. The overconfidence, the borrowed certainty, the recycled beliefs dressed up as wisdom. You hear it because you've lived in the silence long enough to recognize what's hollow. You've stared at yourself when there was no audience, no applause, no escape, and survived the conversation. Most people never do. That's why they need noise. That's why they cling to rules. That's why they panic when someone like you shows up, calm in the middle of contradiction. They feel exposed around you, even when you say nothing, because your presence reflects something back at them they've been avoiding. The gap between who they are and who they know they could have been if they'd faced themselves the way you did. And that reflection makes people irrational, defensive, obsessive. That's why they try to reduce you to a story they can digest. They'll say you're cold. They'll say you're detached. They'll say you changed. What they mean is, you stopped bleeding where they could see it. You learned how to carry depth without advertising it. You learned how to let people underestimate you without correcting them. You learned how to walk through rooms without handing out pieces of your inner world like souvenirs. And that restraint, that discipline, it's messing with them more than any outburst ever could. Because now they don't know where you end. They don't know what you're capable of because you don't broadcast it. They don't know what hurts you because you stopped flinching publicly. They don't know what motivates you because you stopped explaining yourself. All they have left are results. And results without visible effort break the mental models of people who equate struggle with value. They're still stuck believing that suffering must look messy to be real. Yours doesn't. Yours looks quiet, intentional, almost elegant, and that scares them because it suggests that pain can refine instead of ruin, that chaos can produce clarity, that someone can walk through hell and come out less reactive, not more. That's when the whispers start changing tone. At first it was curiosity, then confusion. Now it's caution. They don't say your name the same way anymore. There's a pause before it, a subtle recalibration, like they're checking themselves before engaging, because they've noticed something. When pressure increases, you don't speed up, you slow down. When stakes rise, you don't posture, you observe. When emotions spike, you don't get louder, you get quieter. And quiet control unnerves people addicted to spectacle. You've become someone who doesn't need to dominate to influence. You let others reveal themselves. You let situations unfold. You let patterns expose their own weaknesses. That patience, that willingness to wait without anxiety, that's not passivity, that's power matured. They still try to provoke you sometimes. They test boundaries. They toss little hooks into the water to see if anything bites. And when nothing does, when you simply don't engage, something breaks in them. Because indifference is the one response they can't reverse engineer. You can't manipulate someone who doesn't need your reaction to feel real. That's the moment they realize the math never included self-mastery. All their equations assume dependence on validation, on outcomes, on approval, on certainty. You removed yourself from those dependencies one by one, not through ego, but through exhaustion, through pain that forced you to ask harder questions, through nights where you realized no one was coming to save you, and something inside you decided to stop waiting. You didn't become fearless. You became honest. Honest about what you could lose. Honest about what you could survive. honest about what actually mattered when everything else fell away. And once you stripped life down to its essentials, fear lost its leverage, not because it disappeared, but because you understood it. You know what breaks you. You know what doesn't. And that knowledge is lethal to manipulation. They sense it when you don't rush to prove anything, when you let credit slide, when you don't defend yourself against misinterpretations, when you allow people to believe the wrong things about you, because you're no longer building your identity out of their perceptions. That's when they start projecting. They call you calculating because they can't read you. They call you intense because you don't dilute yourself. They call you dangerous because you don't need their permission. But the truth is simpler and more terrifying. You're free in a way they aren't. Free from needing to be liked. Free from needing to be right. Free from needing to be seen as good or bad. You've stepped outside the binary they live in. And when someone exits the frame loses relevance. That's why the system keeps glitching around you. That's why conversations derail. That's why expectations collapse. You're not here to confirm their worldview. You're here as evidence that another operating system exists. One forged in silence, pressure, self-confrontation, and deliberate choice. And once someone sees that possibility, they can't unsee it. It infects them. It unsettles them. It forces a reckoning. So let them stare at the numbers. Let them rerun the simulations. Let them argue about what you are. The math will keep failing them because you're no longer something to be solved. You're something that moves. And the most unsettling truth of all, the one that keeps them awake, the one they won't admit even to themselves, is this. You didn't become unpredictable because you're lost. You became unpredictable because you're finally in control. And here's the part they really can't stand. The part that doesn't show up in any model, any chart, any projection they run at 3 a.m. while pretending this is still just curiosity. You're not accelerating anymore. You're settled. That's the shift they missed. There was a version of you that was hungry, pushing, proving, reaching. That version was loud in its own way, even when it stayed silent. It wanted results because results felt like safety. It wanted momentum because momentum felt like meaning. That version was understandable, measurable, trackable. This version isn't. This version doesn't chase intensity. It chooses precision. It doesn't seek validation. It selects alignment. It doesn't need chaos to feel alive. It knows when to introduce it and when to let things suffocate under their own weight. You stopped mistaking motion for progress. You stopped confusing noise for power. And that's when you crossed the line they never planned for. Because once someone no longer needs to rush, they become untouchable. Once someone no longer needs to win every exchange, they start winning the long game by default. Once someone no longer needs to explain themselves, they begin shaping reality quietly, indirectly, inevitably. They feel it now, in how outcomes keep bending toward you without you forcing them, in how people defer without being told to, in how opportunities appear without you advertising for them. They don't see the internal discipline behind it, the years of restraint, the self-denial, the brutal honesty, the moments where you chose growth over comfort and silence over ego. They just see the effect. And effects without visible effort terrify people who live off performance. You've become someone who doesn't leak energy. You don't overshare. You don't overreact. You don't overcommit. You don't over-explain. You let things reveal themselves. You let people expose themselves. You let time do the work it's always done best, separating substance from noise. That's why the angel and the demon finally stopped fighting inside you. They integrated. The compassion learned when you were weak fused with the strength you earned when you refused to stay that way. You can be merciful without being naive. You can be ruthless without being cruel. You can walk away without resentment. You can stay without attachment. That balance, that's what recalibrated everything. They keep expecting a collapse, a slip, a regression, something to confirm their old equations. But all they see is consistency under pressure, calm under scrutiny, control under provocation. And slowly, reluctantly, they're forced to face the possibility that scares them the most. You didn't escape the system by breaking rules. You escaped by mastering yourself. No rebellion, no spectacle, no grand announcement. Just a quiet internal decision that you are done being programmable. So let them keep staring at the math. Let them keep whispering theories. Let them keep trying to predict the next move. You're no longer moving to be understood. You're moving because you know exactly who you are. Ah, there it is. That tiny pause, that half-second of silence where the air tightens and the room suddenly feels smaller. That's the moment they realized. Not what you did. Who did it? You felt it, didn't you? That shift. That microscopic tremor in reality where confidence drains out of their posture and gets replaced by something ugly, something ancient, something like fear pretending to be curiosity. OPS, wrong file, wrong face, wrong assumption. And now there's no undo button. See, up until now, you were a concept to them, a rumor, a silhouette, a convenient underestimation they used to help themselves sleep at night. You were probably lucky, probably unstable, probably temporary. They told themselves stories because stories are safer than truth. But then the mask slipped. Not yours, theirs. And suddenly the dots connected in a way that made their stomach drop. The calm under pressure. The way chaos bends around you instead of breaking you. The way you walk through situations that erase other people and somehow come out sharpened, not louder, not flashier, more precise. That's when it hit them. This wasn't growth. This was design. You're the paradox they never learned how to deal with. Too controlled to be reckless, too unpredictable to be mapped, too disciplined to be emotional, too human to be a machine, too dangerous to be ignored. You move like someone who's already died once and came back without fear. They thought pain would soften you. It didn't. It taught you. They thought isolation would make you desperate. It didn't. It made you observant. They thought pressure would expose your cracks. But pressure didn't crack you. It revealed what was already forged underneath. That's the part that rattles them. You didn't snap. You didn't beg. You didn't self-destruct like you were supposed to. You adapted quietly, like something learning the rules of a cage just to test where the bars end. Here's the truth they're choking on right now. You're not fueled by chaos. You're calibrated by it. You're that uncomfortable fusion they never know how to classify. The saint who understands darkness. The psychopath who chooses restraint. The angel who learned how demons think and never forgot. You don't lash out. You wait. You don't explode. You accumulate. And now they're replaying every moment they underestimated you, trying to find the exact second where they should have stopped playing dumb. But it's too late. Because once someone sees you clearly, they can't unsee you. That's the curse of real power. It doesn't announce itself. It reveals itself after the damage is done. They're realizing you were never reacting. You were studying. Every dismissal, logged. Every betrayal, stored. Every laugh behind your back, filed away with surgical precision. Not for revenge, for leverage. You see, revenge is emotional. What you're doing is evolution. You became fluent in silence. You learned how to let people expose themselves while you stayed unreadable. You mastered the art of being underestimated without becoming invisible. That's why there's panic in their eyes now, because they finally understand the math. You don't need approval. You don't need permission. And you definitely don't need validation from people who only feel safe when they feel superior. You outgrew them while they were busy measuring you with outdated versions of yourself. And here's the part that really breaks their brain. You're not angry, you're awake. Anger is loud, awareness is lethal. They wanted you emotional, they got you strategic. They wanted you broken, they got you self-authored. They wanted a villain they could point at. Instead, they got a mirror that reflects everything they tried to hide. That's why their tone changed. That's why respect arrived late and awkward and forced. That's why the jokes stopped. Because now they know you're not the type of person who needs to prove anything. You're the type of person who lets outcomes speak while you stay silent. And silence. Silence terrifies people who live off noise. So yeah, OOPS, they finally realized who this is. And the worst part for them, you're just getting started. Not louder, not crueler, not reckless, sharper. There's no undo button for awakening, no rollback for someone who learned how to turn pain into clarity and pressure into direction. No patch for a mind that learned how systems break by surviving inside them. They wanted the old you. That version is gone. What's standing here now is something calmer, colder, more intentional, something that understands both light and dark, and knows exactly when to use each. And they can feel it, that quiet certainty in your presence, that unsettling calm that says, you're already late. They didn't just recognize you, they recognized the mistake. And mistakes like that don't get erased. They're sitting with that realization now, you know, staring at ceilings, rereading conversations, replaying moments that felt insignificant at the time, but now glow red in hindsight. That's what awareness does. It weaponizes memory. And right now, their own mind is turning against them, stitching together a pattern they can't escape. Because once you recognize a predator, your instincts don't let you rest. And once they recognized you, their nervous system went into survival mode. They finally noticed the consistency. Not loud wins, not dramatic collapses, but that eerie steadiness. The way you don't flinch when things fall apart. The way uncertainty seems to sharpen your focus instead of scrambling it. That's when it stopped being entertaining to them. That's when curiosity turned into concern. You see, normal people need momentum to feel powerful. You don't. You operate just as well in stillness. You can sit inside discomfort without needing to perform. You can let silence stretch until it starts talking for you. You can watch people expose their insecurities simply by staying calm while they unravel. That's not charisma. That's dominance of self. And self-mastery is the one thing they never learned how to fight. They're realizing now that every time they thought you were losing, you were actually refining. Every setback wasn't damage. It was data. Every rejection wasn't a wound. It was filtration. Every lonely stretch wasn't punishment. It was conditioning. Pain didn't make you bitter. It made you accurate. You stopped wasting energy on proving you were right. you started letting reality prove it for you. And reality has a way of being brutally honest. That's why they're uneasy, because you don't move like someone chasing approval. You move like someone who already knows how the story ends and is just waiting for the timing to be clean. They thought unpredictability meant chaos. They didn't understand it could mean freedom. You're unpredictable because you're not ruled by impulse. You're not reacting from old wounds anymore. You choose when to strike, when to withdraw, when to let things collapse on their own weight. That kind of restraint looks like mercy to the ignorant. But to anyone who understands power, it looks like threat containment. They can't read you anymore. Your emotions don't leak. Your intentions don't announce themselves. Your silence doesn't mean hesitation. It means calculation. And that terrifies people who rely on tells. You've become the contradiction that breaks their models. Too composed to provoke. Too deep to manipulate. Too self-aware to gaslight. They can't bait you into proving anything. They can't shame you into shrinking. They can't intimidate you into reacting. Because you already faced worse when no one was watching. You already survived the part where most people fold. The part where identity dissolves. The part where you either become honest with yourself or disappear. You chose honesty. And honesty rewired you. Now you see patterns before they fully form. You sense shifts before they're visible. You recognize danger not by noise, but by absence. You don't need to dominate rooms. Rooms adjust when you enter. And that's the moment they regret. The moment they laughed. The moment they dismissed you. The moment they mistook your restraint for weakness. Because strength that announces itself is usually compensating. Strength that stays quiet is usually inevitable. They can feel it now, the loss of control. The way conversations around you feel different. The way respect shows up late, stiff, forced. The way people watch what they say, wondering what you already know. They're starting to understand something brutal. You didn't climb the hierarchy. You stepped outside of it. And systems don't know how to deal with people who aren't playing. You're not trying to win their game. You're building leverage while they're still arguing about rules. That's why there's no undo button, no apology that fits, no narrative that shrinks you back down to something manageable. They can't go back to seeing you as harmless. They can't unlearn the feeling you give them now. That quiet pressure in the chest. That sense that you're not someone to test twice. Because you're not driven by ego anymore. You're driven by clarity. And clarity doesn't rage. It executes. You're not here to be liked. You're here to be aligned with yourself. And alignment is louder than approval ever was. So let them sit with it. Let them spiral through regret and reevaluation. Let them realize too late that they misjudged the most dangerous phase of your evolution, the calm one. Because the version of you they dismissed, that version was still learning. This one knows exactly who it is. And that's the moment everything changes. And the longer they sit with it, the worse it gets. Because realization doesn't hit like a punch. It seeps in like poison, slow, relentless, impossible to ignore once it starts working through the system. They're realizing you were never chasing outcomes. You were shaping inevitability. You didn't rush, you didn't panic, you didn't scramble when the ground shifted beneath you. You adjusted your stance and let the earthquake reveal who couldn't stand. That's what separates you from them. They need certainty to function. You learned how to operate inside uncertainty until it felt like home. You stopped needing guarantees. You stopped asking for clarity from people who profit off confusion. You stopped explaining yourself to minds. that only understand what benefits them. That's when you cross the line they don't talk about, the invisible one, the moment you stop being controllable. Because control requires predictability, and you learned how to move without leaving a trail. They're realizing now that you don't signal your next move, you don't leak anticipation, you don't posture, you let things happen, and then you respond in a way that feels disproportionate. Not in force, but in accuracy. That's the part they can't stomach. You don't overreact. You end things quietly, cleanly, without drama. They mistook your patience for passivity, but patience, when combined with awareness, becomes a weapon with no warning sound. You are watching how people behave when they think they're safe, who lies when there's nothing to gain, who betrays when no one's looking, who panics when pressure rises by just 1 degree. You saw it all, and you remembered, not emotionally, strategically. You don't hate them, that would give them relevance. What unsettles them is worse. You understand them. You understand how fragile their confidence really is, how much of their identity is stitched together with validation and borrowed authority, how quickly they fold when admiration dries up and consequences enter the room. You don't need to expose them. Time does that for you. That's why they're uncomfortable around you now, because you don't react to their masks. You see the seams. You don't challenge them publicly. You let them collapse privately, and the collapse always starts the same way. With confusion, with that creeping sense that they're no longer in control of the narrative. They feel watched, not because you're staring, but because you're aware. Awareness has weight. It bends conversations. It shortens egos. It forces people to choose their words more carefully. You carry that weight now. You earned it in places they never survived, in isolation, in doubt. In nights where there was no audience, no applause, no reassurance that it would work out. You kept going anyway. That's why their realization hurts so much. They didn't just misjudge you. They misjudged what it costs to become you. They thought strength was loud. You learned it's quiet. They thought confidence was dominance. You learned it's restraint. They thought power was taking. You learned it's choosing when not to. And now they're stuck with the truth. You're not someone who needs to prove superiority. You're someone who outlasts. Outlasting terrifies people who live for short-term wins. They can't rush you. They can't rush your process. They can't rush your decisions. You move when it's aligned, not when it's convenient for them. That's why there's tension in the air when you speak now. That's why even your silence feels intentional. That's why they replay your words afterward, wondering what they missed. Because they sense it. You're not improvising anymore. You're executing from a place they don't have access to. You're not operating from pain. You integrated it. You didn't let darkness turn you cruel. You let it turn you clear. And clarity doesn't seek permission. So let them sit in the aftermath of their realization. Let them wrestle with the fact that the version of you they could have dismissed no longer exists. Let them understand, slowly and painfully, that they woke something they don't know how to put back to sleep. Because there really is no undo button for this stage. You can't unsee patterns. You can't unknow yourself. You can't return to being small once you've learned how expansive you actually are. You crossed a threshold, and now every room you enter feels it, even if no one says a word. They didn't just recognize who you are. They recognized what happens next. And the scariest part for them? You're calm about it. That calm, it's not peace, it's readiness. And that's what keeps them awake. Because panic is loud, fear is obvious. But readiness? Readiness is silent. It watches. It waits. It doesn't need reassurance. They can feel it in the way you don't rush conversations anymore, in the way you let people finish talking, even when they're wrong, in the way you don't interrupt. Because you're not here to win arguments. You're here to collect information. That's the shift they didn't notice until it was irreversible. You stopped needing to be understood. You stopped needing to be validated. You stopped needing to be seen as good or reasonable or harmless. You let go of the need to be misjudged correctly. And once you do that, once you truly stop caring how small minds label you, you become impossible to box. They don't know which version of you they're dealing with anymore. The disciplined one, the compassionate one, the ruthless one, the patient one. They don't realize it's all the same person, just deployed differently, depending on the moment. That's what evolution looks like, not transformation into something else, but integration. You didn't kill parts of yourself. You organized them. You learned when to be soft without being weak, when to be sharp without being cruel, when to be silent without disappearing, when to speak without explaining. And now, every interaction feels heavier for them, because they know, consciously or not. They're being assessed, not engaged. You're not reacting to what they say. You're watching why they say it. You're not focused on the words. You're tracking the intention underneath. And intentions don't lie. People do. That's why they feel exposed around you, why jokes fall flat, why posturing looks ridiculous, why emotional manipulation dies in the air before it reaches you. You don't take bait. You don't chase closure. You don't seek revenge. You let patterns finish revealing themselves. And once a pattern is clear, action becomes simple. They sense that simplicity now, that terrifying lack of hesitation behind your eyes, not impulsive, not emotional, just resolved. You already did the hardest part. You already survived not knowing who you'd become. You already walked through the phase where everything familiar dissolved. Most people never recover from that stage. They numb themselves. They distract. They cling to identities that no longer fit. You didn't. You stayed present while it hurt. You stayed conscious while it burned. You let the old version of you die without rushing to replace it. That's why what emerged isn't fragile. It's coherent. You know who you are now, not because someone told you, but because you watched yourself under pressure and took notes. That kind of self-knowledge is permanent. That's why there's no undo button. They can apologize. They can flatter. They can suddenly see your value. It doesn't matter. You're not offended. You're not impressed. You're past them, past the need to correct narratives, past the desire to be liked by people who only respect power once it's undeniable, past the phase where disrespect wounds instead of informs. Disrespect taught you something priceless, who to stop investing in. And now your energy is expensive, your time is selective, your presence is intentional, your silence is purposeful. You don't explain your boundaries anymore. You enforce them by withdrawing access. That's when people panic. Because access was the only leverage they had. They thought you needed them. They didn't realize you were evaluating them. And now, the evaluation is over. That's why they're scrambling, why the tone changed, why the respect feels awkward and late. They finally realized who this is. Not a phase, not a fluke. Not someone who stumbled into strength. Someone forged by reality. Someone trained by loss. Someone sharpened by betrayal and refined by restraint. Someone who doesn't need to announce power. Because power recognizes itself. And you feel it too, don't you? That internal stillness, that grounded certainty, that absence of urgency. You're no longer asking if things will align, you're deciding when. That's the final shift, not dominance over others, but sovereignty over yourself. And once someone reaches that point, once they stop seeking permission from the world has no choice but to respond. They realized too late, and now they can only watch.